Hello, you're once again welcome to our WASSCE past question revision session. So we'll continue. Today we'll be looking at the WASSCE Integrated Science 2014, the objectives. This is the first 20 questions, so let's take note of it. That's how come we have the objectives. So the first one, gum bleeding in humans is caused by the deficiency of vitamin C. So when you lack vitamin C, then the resulting deficiency is what we call gum bleeding. Deficiency, take note, is a disorder which is caused by the lack of a particular food nutrient. Vitamin C, likely sources or main source of vitamin C, we know the citrus fruits such as orange, tangerine, lemon. These are very good source of vitamin C. Also pawpaw, mango are also good sources of vitamin C. Question 2. Linnaeus' system of classification of living things is based on what? It is based on natural relationships, not just on appearance or body size. There were scientists who came before Linnaeus. Linnaeus is one scientist who brought a different system or a different way of classifying living organisms. There was this man called Aristotle who came before Linnaeus, but he classified living things just based on their appearance, how they move. For example, he puts a bird and then an insect into one group because they all fly. Now you could see that although both of them fly, but there will be certain structural differences, or there's a certain unnatural link between the two. Although both of them fly, but if you compare a bird and then an insect, it's apart from the fact that both of them fly, there's a lot of differences between them, and so this man's ideology or concept of classifying living things was replaced by Carolus Linnaeus, who came to classify living things based on what? Natural relationship. There's a natural link between organisms that are put into the same group or category. So for example, mammals, for instance, all mammals have this natural link or connection. The fact that all of them have fur, they have fur or hair on their skin, and also they have lungs. They use lungs in breathing. For example, whale bats are mammals. Bat, for instance, it flies alright, but it's not considered as a bird. Bat is considered as a mammal. Why? Because it has fur or hair, and also because it gives birth. It doesn't lay eggs. Birds lay eggs, but bats do not lay eggs, so that's why bats are classified under mammals. So that's to tell you Linnaeus' system of naming or classifying living that is based on natural relationships, not just on their appearance or body size or jointed system. Question 3. A machine is classified as a first-class lever when the pivot is between the load and the effort. So if you look at the illustration on the slide, you see that the first one, which is the first class lever, you have the pivot, or what is sometimes called fulcrum, Fulcrum. That's the other name of pivot. So sometimes if you don't see pivot, you see fulcrum, you know that they are referring to the same thing. So you have the pivot in the middle for a first class lever. So I invented a mnemonic, just something to EPL. EPL, I think most of the boys can relate to this. English Premiership or English Premier League. So that stands for EPL. And also you know that the load will be in the middle for second class lever, and then for third class obviously is the last one, which is effort between pivot and then load. Question 4. The process by which various components of crude petroleum are obtained is fractional distillation. Take note, this is a separation of mixture method, and this method separates a mixture based on the differences in their boiling point. So for example, so the crude here is the mixture. Now the crude oil is heated in the furnace. Look at the illustration on the slide, and then the various components, because they have different boiling points, they will all not just evaporate out of the furnace at a go. No, every component, when it reaches its boiling point, will turn to vapor, and then will get into the chamber, and then because it's now in a vapor, it will be condensed from the vapor form to a liquid form. Then it goes out. So for instance, the components inside the crude petroleum which have lower boiling point, they will be the ones to boil first. They will rise up and then will be condensed. For example, like gasoline, petrol, like this, it has a lower boiling point, so it would be the one to first boil out of the mixture, and then will be condensed, then followed by the rest, like that. Question 5. Which of the following signs is associated with parturition in a cattle? Parturition is the process of birth. The process in which an animal gives birth is what we know as parturition. Of course, during parturition, one of the signs is that the belly will become distended and it drops because of the baby in there. As the vulva becomes contracted, that's not true. During birth, you would expect the vulva, which is the folding around the vagina, you expect it to relax, to open up so that the baby can come out, so it will not contract. There is also no difficulty in urination. The other is around the groin area of the cow. It would be wider because of the baby in there. Now question 6. Under which of the following conditions will maize germinate if they are placed on a moist cotton in a test tube? Well, if you place them on a dry cotton in a test tube, there will be no water. And water is one of the factors necessary for germination. Aside water, you also need oxygen for germination. Then aside oxygen too, you also need suitable temperature for germination, and then viable seed. So there are 4 factors necessary for germination: suitable temperature, water, oxygen or air, and viable seed. A viable seed is a seed that will germinate if all other factors are there. So if you have a seed, you give it water, you give it oxygen, you give it a suitable temperature, and it does not germinate, then it's not a viable seed. So a viable seed is a seed that will germinate when all the conditions are present. So over here, look at the illustration here. Beaker A, it was the maize seeds were put on a dry cotton, so of course it didn't germinate. Now the beaker B, the maize seeds were placed on a wet cotton or moist cotton, so it germinated because there was air there, there was water there, and there was suitable condition. Obviously the seeds were viable. Question 7. A wet piece of cloth dries faster when spread than folded because the larger surface area will aid evaporation of water. Yes, it's not temperature will be even in the cloth. Water will drop out of the cloth faster. That's not true. Water will be even in the, no, that's not true. It's got a surface area. It's just like your towel. After bathing, if you fold up your towel, if you fold it up and then put it down, it will take a very long time for it to dry up, compared to when you open it up or you spread it open. Why? Because when you spread it, you expose a large surface area of the towel to air, so that evaporation can occur faster and more. So that's the reason why a wet piece of cloth will dry faster when you spread it out than when it is folded. And this principle actually also works in living things. For example, we see the root hair, the tiny structures attached to a root. It makes the root to have a large surface area, so it makes it to be able to absorb more water. In the same way too, in the small intestines of humans or mammals, the small intestine is coiled, and it has small structures called the microvilli, so that gives it a large surface area to absorb the end product of digestion. I think that's what is popularly known as those who like to enjoy theosophy, and they call that towel. So when you look at that, you realize that it's rough. The inside is rough because of some small tiny projections in there, so that gives it more surface area. It gives it a towel appearance, like absorb the end product of digestion more and then faster. Question 8. Fertilization in humans usually occurs in the oviduct. Take note, fertilization does not occur in the ovary. Ovary is where the eggs are produced. Uterus is the womb, the other name for the womb. That is where the baby is housed until what? Birth. Fertilization does not occur in the uterus. It does not also occur in the vagina. Fertilization, take note, is the fusion, the joining of the sperm and then the egg from the female. It would only occur inside the oviduct, or what is also known as fallopian tube. Now, under rare cases, would you have fertilization occurring outside the oviduct? And normally when it occurs like that, it becomes a challenge, and it's results in what is known as ectopic pregnancy, which can have lots of complications and could lead to death, especially in teenage pregnant girls. Question 9. In the preparation of local soap, popularly known as alata, the ash of plantain peels is added to palm oil in order to provide an alkali. So an alkali is gotten when the ash of plantain peels is added to the palm oil. Now, which of the following management practices ensures the raising of healthy chicks? So realize that the first 3: controlling human traffic to the brooder house, debeaking chicks when they are 2 weeks. Debeaking is when you remove their beak. When the beak is too long, it's likely that it might lead to spread of infections and all that. And also ensuring good ventilation in the brooder house. So when there is proper movement of air or circulation of air within the brooder house, it will limit the spread of disease, and they would all live healthily. The chicks would be healthy. So it's the first 3: I. It's not IV is not part. Visiting the older chicks first before brooding, that wouldn't lead to any raising of healthy chicks. 11. Which of the following statements about a food web is true? The producers are the soil micro. That's not true. Producers are those that manufacture food, and those are plants. Producers are plants because they produce the food in a food web. All the rest are consumers. Now, each consumer feeds on a particular organism in a food web. That is not true. In a food web, a food web is complicated. If you look at the illustration here, for instance, the frog like this can be eaten by the fox. It could also be eaten by the hawk. So just one organism can be fed on by many other organisms. So that's what makes it a food web. But if it were to be a food chain, it's just one organism feeding on another organism like that. It's linear, it's in order. So you see that there are food chains within this food web. For example, from the grass to the insect, from the insect to the frog, from the frog to the fox. That's a linear feeding relationship, and that's what you call a food chain. So a food chain is a linear feeding relationship between organisms, whilst a food web is what? It's a complex system of feeding relationship between number of organisms in an ecosystem. So you could say that a food web is made up of different food chains that are interrelated. So the answer is what? D. One organism may be fed or pawned by several others. Over here, for instance, the insect there, I think it's the grasshopper. It could be fed on by the frog. The thrush, that's the bird over there, could also feed on it. And the vort, that's the rodent over there, could also feed or eat the insect. Question 12. In flowering plants, mineral salts are transported through the xylem. The xylem, if you look at the illustration, the xylem is what absorbs water and mineral salt from the soil and through the roots to the stem and then to the leaves where photosynthesis occurs. Then after photosynthesis has occurred and then the food has been made, then the food is then transported through another one, this time around called phloem, toward all other parts of the plant. 13. The diagram below is an illustration of a laboratory apparatus. Use it to answer the question, this question and then question 14. So the apparatus is called, it's a test tube holder. used to hold test tubes. Now the apparatus is used to, so I said that already, used to hold a test tube during heating. Of course, when you're heating, let's say a liquid in a test tube, you can't hold it or it will get hot. So you have to now, you can do that by using a test tube holder to hold it in place whilst you heat the content of the test. Which of the following statements about fertilization in humans is true? It always occurs inside or the female. Yes, that's any other thing is wrong. Fertilization would always occur inside the female in humans. In humans. So it might not be true in other organisms, but in humans it occurs in 16. Which of the following statements about anaerobic respiration is correct? Take note, respiration is a life process in which energy is produced from food substances, either by the use of oxygen or without the use of oxygen. Now when respiration uses oxygen, so we call that aerobic respiration. And on the slide here you have the illustration. Aerobic respiration, which is the first one, glucose plus oxygen giving you carbon dioxide and then water. So over here oxygen is being used to break down glucose, which is the food substance, to produce carbon dioxide and water as byproduct. And then the main product is what? Is energy. It's energy. Then we have what you call anaerobic respiration, which is also another type of respiration, but that one you do not need oxygen. Doesn't need oxygen for it to take place. So under anaerobic respiration you have glucose being broken down and then forming other products, for example lactic acid, and then energy. Take note, the main product of respiration is energy, but we don't indicate the energy in the equation. So glucose giving you lactic acid. Now take note, when anaerobic respiration occurs in animals, it produces lactic acid, but when it occurs in plants and some other microorganisms, it produces ethanol and carbon dioxide. Take note, anaerobic respiration occurs without oxygen. Now the one in plant and microorganisms is what we normally call fermentation. When something ferments, you realize that, for example, if a kinky ferments, you would realize that would have a lot of alcohol inside. Why? Because the glucose inside the kinky has undergone anaerobic respiration and then has produced ethanol and then carbon dioxide. Now usually for this most fermentation process, you would realize that they don't allow air to enter. They all would try to prevent air from entering. For example, when wine is being made, they use this anaerobic respiration so that the ethanol will be produced and will be part of the wine, and then they will now sell it or whatever. So take note of that. When anaerobic respiration occurs in animals, it produces lactic acid, and when it occurs in plants, it produces ethanol and carbon dioxide, and that's what we call fermentation. Now take note that anaerobic respiration, as I said, occurs in the absence of oxygen. So for example, when you are running, it gets to a time where your body doesn't get adequate oxygen, so sometimes certain part of your body would now under anaerobic respiration, so your body will now be producing energy without oxygen. And then of course, so it would also be produce lactic acid, produce that lactic acid in your system, which is later cleared from your system when you stop running and then you rest. The lactic acid will be cleared off. But in the meantime, when you are running, doing something difficult, strenuous, you are gasping for breath, oxygen is reduced, so your body would undergo anaerobic respiration, and then you produce lactic acid. Now sometimes when lactic acid tends to accumulate in your body or gets excess in your muscles, that's what leads to what we call muscle pull, and then it's like your thighs can get locked, or any other part of it gets locked, like you can't move it because the lactic acid has gone up over there. 17. Consider the chemical equation below. So Ca3COOH plus C2H5OH giving you CH3CO C2H. This equation represents what? An esterification reaction. When you say an esterification reaction, it's a reaction that produces a special substance called an ester. E-S-T-E-R. An ester is a sweet smelling substance. It normally smells like fruit. Now it is usually made by combining an acid and then an alcohol. So esterification reaction is a reaction between an acid, or we say specifically an organic acid, and then an alcohol. So the equation here in this question, the first one is the acid, the CH3COOH is called ethanoic acid. So that's the organic acid there. And then C2H5OH, that's the formula for alcohol. So the two combine and they form the ester. So the ester has the formula CH3COOC2H. So esterification is a very important process because in chemical industry they use that to produce, let's say, banana flavors, orange flavors. So all these are chemicals. They can add it to a drink and then you would feel or smell or taste, let's say, orange, but in actual fact there is no orange juice, there's no trace of orange juice inside. They are just using esters. Chemicals have been produced by esterification which smell like fruits. So take note of that. 18. Which of the following methods can be used to control water logging in soil? Water logging is when you have water staying up in soil. So you could use mulching. Mulching is when you cover the surface of the soil with a green material or a plant material. 19. When an NPN transistor is used as a simple amplifier, the base emitter junction is forward bias. You see that a transistor, we have two types of transistors. Take note of that. We have the NPN transistors and then we have the PNP. So you just change the locations of the letters. Take note, there's no NPP transistor. It's NPN transistor, or you have PNP transistor. Most often, if you are asked to give any maybe types of transistors, you just go straight to the point and just list them. So NPN transistor and then PNP transistor. So in the question here, we are being questioned on NPN transistor, which is on the illustration on the right side. You see that, so for every transistor they have three parts. We have the emitter, base, and then the collector. It has three legs, as it were. One is the emitter, another the middle one, the base, and then we have the collector. Now when the base emitter junction is forward biased, when it's used as an amplifier, the base and then the emitter junction is forward biased. Now under electronics, when we say a component is forward biased or a circuit is forward biased, what we mean is that the positive side of the component is connected to the positive side of the battery, and then the negative side of that component is also connected to the negative side of the battery. So if you check on the second diagram illustration for the NPN, you see that the negative side of the battery is connecting to the N side, which is the negative, the NP and the N standing for negative, connected to that one, and then the P, which is the positive, connecting to the positive side of the battery. So the emitter base junction is forward biased, but if you look at the base collector junction, it is the reverse. The positive side of the battery is rather connected to the negative side of the NPN transistor. The negative side is connected to the positive side. So take note, in an NPN transistor, the emitter base junction are forward biased, meaning the positive side of the battery connects to the positive side of the transistor, whilst the negative side connects to the negative side of the transistor. Question 20. Which of the following movements occur when the arm of a human is bent? So when you bend your arm, like the illustration on the slide. The first one, the arm is bent. Now this is what happened. The biceps, those are the muscles in front, they will contract, they will squeeze up, whilst the one behind your arm, which we call the triceps, they will relax. They will not be tense, they will now be relaxed, but the biceps will be tensed or will be contracted. So this occurs when the arm is all bent. The biceps contract whilst the triceps would relax. Now when you stretch your arm, the opposite would happen. When you stretch your arm, the bicep now will come and relax whilst the triceps contracts or become tensed up.